Welcome and welcome again. This is episode 2 in the series, The Coming of the Lord, taken from 2 Peter 3, verse 1 to 18, the whole chapter of 3. And as we go through this series, it's very easy to understand these things when the Spirit of Truth comes to you. It's very easy. It becomes so simple that even sometimes you have to question yourself if this is really what it means. But that's when the Spirit of truth comes to you. All things are open up. You receive the key. You have the key of the understanding because God now has given it to you, and so you receive it and you understand it. So now you are able to use it as He wills. So let's jump into verse 3. Knowing this, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their lust. Now, if you understand this verse, it says, knowing this first, now he's just listing in the order that he sees fit to teach these particular people he's writing to. Remember, they know already all that he is saying. This, as it says in verse 1, is to stir up their pure minds, meaning that something has become dormant in them, their understanding. And this is one of the reasons, just life in it of itself, that has made them become dormant in being established or being known throughout the earth or in their influence where they are. So it's just to stir up their minds. They already know what he is teaching or what he's writing. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers. Now, there are many assumptions about the last days, but the last days is really simple. A lot of times you won't know the last days until that manifestation of that particular thing or the ending result of that particular thing happen. You won't know the last days. You could be living in the last days of a particular thing. You could be living in the last days of your marriage, but your marriage hasn't come to an end. You could be living in the last day when your children may leave your home. You don't know until they leave. That's what it meant by last days. Before, as he said, the last days, that's what the meaning of last days is. It's really, really simple. So the last days in this context of what Peter is writing is according to those who are walking after their lust. So he's writing to people who are not walking after their lust, to be mindful and be aware of people who are walking after their lust. And these are the people in verse 4, they're going to say, I'm jumping ahead of myself, but that's all right. These are the people in verse 4, as you will see, will be saying, where is the promise of his coming? But in truth, they don't know what it means by the promise of his coming. So the letter is being written to a people who are not walking after the lust like the people of the world. And he's stirring up their minds not to walk as those who walk in their lust. And as verse 4 says now, where is the promise of his coming? For since the Father fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. Now understand this, New Testament is written now for our present time, our example. We are looking back at what Peter is saying and what happened. Some things is lost, but God is a spirit, and God is always ever present with us to teach us all things in our current state of mind and age. God never. So let's get into the context of the New Testament and their age. When he says they are walking after their lust, you could also read Romans chapter 1, 2, and 3, and it lays out before you how the Greek and the Jew and the Hebrews, all of them, they might be interchangeable, those terms. Don't worry about those terms. How they who know the truth of God, who are led astray by seducing spirit, and when they led astray, their lives become destructive. So what Peter here is saying, these are those people who are walking after their lusts. And we're going to see the revelation that it's really, really simple. And a lot of these things we already know. But of course, the separator come into our midst and deceive us. Also understand that scoffers in this text is the same as mockers, people that is mocking us. And they are the ones that are walking after their lust, say, where is the promise of his coming? Now, this is happening to us today, but it's happening in a different way. They're using different ways, newer words. For example, they would say homosexual is right, fornication is good. They would say anything. They are really mockers. They're mocking people who follow Christ, people who follow God, people who follow the truth. So they're really mocking. They might not be mocking the same way as in the text, but they are still mocking. It's the same thing. There's nothing new. So they are saying in the context of Peter that since the fathers fell asleep, the prophets, Abraham, Moses, and whichever one you want to say fell asleep, they died in this context. When they say fell asleep, this context fell asleep mean when they are dead, they are not coming back. But you see, they are ignorant of certain things. But nevertheless, let's keep going. This saying that these people say that all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. They are ignorant of this thing that Peter is going to teach now, which we know. I know now that these things happen. It's just that seducers has blinded us. So let's look at verse 5, because Peter here is now going to reiterate to the people that are not walking after the lust, the people that he's writing to, about those that are walking after lust and how they are coming against the people of God, the people of truth, the people of faith, the people of righteousness. This is what Peter says they say, for they are willingly ignorant of that by the word of God, meaning they are ignorant of the coming of the Lord. By the word of God, the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water in the water, whereby the world that then was being overflow with water perish. I'm going to stop at verse 6 and just explain, because I got to maybe linger right here. They are willingly, these people they're walking after the lust, they are ignorant of the coming of the Lord. This is to exemplify, as we read right here, that not only these people that Peter are writing to understand the coming of the Lord, the people who are walking after their lusts are willingly ignorant of the very same thing. This is amazing, because both group understand what the coming of the Lord means. Not only these people are those people in Peter's era, Peter's lifetime, Peter's world, Peter's realm, understand what the coming of the Lord meant. Today, people understand what karma means. People understand whatsoever man soweth, that shall he reap. They understand that. People understand by their fruit you shall know them. People understand that by a person, words and deed, you know who the person is. The apple or the fruit don't fall from the tree. People understand, both the people of God and people of the world understand these words. But there are some who are willingly ignorant of this very knowledge. We all know that a good tree produces good fruit and a bad tree produces bad fruit. These are parable. These are allegory. In Jesus' time, in Peter's verse 6 is where the conundrum happens, the confusion happened, whereby the world that was then was being overflowed with water and the people perish. This is a parable. These are spiritual language. These are allegory. These are figurative language. These are the same thing as in Matthew chapter 7, 24 to 27, where it says, if you build your house upon this rock, when the wind comes, when the storm blows, when the rain comes, you will stand, because the rock is the spirit of truth. And so when everything happens in your life, this is the very same thing in verse 6. When anything happen in your life, depending what you build your house, your life, your family, it's basically a simple parable that whatever you build your life upon, your family's life, your children's life, whatever it is, there will come a testing time. The testing don't even have to come from you falling or making a mistake. The testing can come from the world around us. That's basically what it is. And so when the world around us fall, because we're in the world also, when the market fall, the fake market or whatever fall, we will be affected by it. When there is inflation, we will be affected. And I can't go deeper into some of these things, but anything. Didn't we know a lot of people in verse 6 perish before their physical death? Verse 7. But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. The word perdition in this context, when you hear the word perdition, you could look back at Judas and look at the example of Judas. Perdition means the selling of the gospel. That's what it basically means. And fire against the day of judgment. There are many people who are selling the gospel for profit. If you remember in the Old Testament, with I think it was Elijah or Elisha, which is servant, who when the I forgot the soldier came to him and whatever, I think it was the Syrian sergeant that came to him. I'm paraphrasing, but I know what I'm talking about. And when he offered the Elijah money for the healing that he went into the Jordan River to get, the servant who overheard ran after him after everything and ran after him to get a profit for what he did. But at the time, Elijah told him, this is not the time where you should receive wages for the gift of God in that sense. And even presently in the New Testament, when I think it was Peter, when the apostles went down, and this particular witch person saw the gift of God, the power of God, he tried to buy the gospel the power of God with money. In Revelation, we read, so verse 7 again is identifying and clarifying to us today, back in Peter's day and today in our day, that it's pretty much the revelation is whatsoever man sow, that shall he reap. Karma, as they say, so as the table turns, as they say, by their fruits you shall know them. The fruit don't fall far from the tree. A good tree produce good fruit, and a bad tree produce bad fruit. And Matthew 7 verse 24 to 27, where it reiterates that if you build your house upon this rock, and the wind and the storm and everything, basically the coming of the Lord is the revelation of every man's work,